All right. I figure it's close enough to 3. I think there's a couple people around. We'll give folks another couple of minutes. I will get comfortable. Let me make sure I can see the chat. All right. How's everybody doing? This is the exciting part. Waiting for people, right? Okay. Well, what are we here to do? We're going to listen and do some dissection of the songs that are on this guy. I think you can see. You might have it already. If you're seeing this later and you don't have this, it's currently available on Bandcamp. The URL is up there, and there'll be a link in the description. You know, all that typical YouTube garbage. Available on cassette and digitally from Bandcamp. If you are not a Bandcamp person and would like, are asking when it's going to be on, your favorite non-independent streaming service, your Apples and your Spotify's, September. I'm going to be putting it on to the larger services. The beginning of September, I'll be announcing a date shortly for that. Probably the first week. I mean, it's all ready. I just need to settle on a date and publish it. But anyway, super excited. Haven't done a full length in a while. And some of the background, I suppose, is worth going into. I find that my creative cycles are, it's almost, you can almost set a watch to it. Over the summer, I am not super creative. I'm not, don't feel really compelled to sit and work and develop new music. I might do a little bit here and there, and then those just end up in my directories of material to go through. But towards the end of the summer and the beginning of fall, I start to think like, I haven't put something out in a while. And I start going through all of the material I've prepared or half written or whatever it may be, and start compiling something, and start finding stuff to actually look at and finish. Those of you that know me or are familiar with how I typically worked, I do a lot of improvisation. I do a lot of jamming. I do a lot of hey, let's just throw some stuff together and see what happens. And then I save that and move on. And those things sit around on my hard drive for potentially long periods of time. This album started with the idea of, I was listening to, I think I was listening to Life Forms by Future Sound of London. And I said, one of the things that I struggle with is that my music can be stylistically a little bit all over the place. I mean, those of you who've had this conversation with me are very nice and say that it sounds like me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that my music sounds like me. But, there's some that sounds like a little bit more like one genre than another. And I had all of these different tracks in all of these kind of slightly different styles or even drastically different styles. And I was listening to Life Forms by Future Sound of London and kind of had this idea it doesn't matter. just put whatever tracks, have it be this psychedelic, grab bag of my for different varieties of electronic music. And I was like, what a great idea. And then I started to go through tracks and realized fairly quickly that wasn't going to work out. They were just a little too different from one another. So that I started narrowing it down a little bit more to a set of songs that were maybe more in one spectrum of my work than others, and put the rest off to the side to maybe revisit another day. So that then became the process of, evaluating each one of these tracks and figuring out, what they needed to finish them, what we needed to do, what I needed to do, and that can be editing, that can be adding additional parts, that can be subtracting parts, that could be, completely, playing with them some more and just seeing if I felt like it. And I ended up with about 15 or 16 tracks at that point. And then as I worked through them, I narrowed it down to the 11 tracks that are on the release. And the one kind of holdover, and this is something I do on all my full-length releases. If you've never noticed, it's something that maybe is a little bit of a signature. A lot of my favorite records have no segues between, or all of the tracks segue from one track to another. There's no hard breaks. And that, obviously Future Sound of London did that a lot in their classic records. But, going back to Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, those are albums that have no 1 or 2 second breaks between songs. Every song kind of flows into the next, and that was something that I do that on most of my full lengths, and I definitely put a lot of thought into the sequencing and how the tracks work together, and how they would transition from one to another. So, all right. Obviously, the chat is here. I see there's really only a couple of folks here yet. Hopefully, as we go on, more will join, and, they will just miss out on the beginning. But I am, I think, ready to dive into Modus Operandi, and we will start with track 1, which, entitled Pursuit. You may have seen I did I put together a video to kind of promote this before the record came out, before it was done. This one I'm actually pretty proud of, because it is really minimal compared to many of the other tracks on the record. You see, it's 8 tracks, and is sourced primarily from a jam. So the original recording was probably 15 minutes long, octatrack, modular, the Behringer 303, and then so the first step was to go in and start editing that down to a length that was reasonable, and then kind of fine-tuning the mix and fine-tuning the arrangement. So let's start playing it. Hope somebody can give me maybe give me a thumbs up. The audio is working fine, but I tested it earlier in recording and everything seemed to be good. So here we go. Should start hearing. So the modular drones here on track 8 were the last thing I added to the track because I felt like it needed something to kind of kick it off, and that's just recorded straight out of the modular. You can hear the radio music and the piston Honda. Obviously, the 303 is just kind of doing its thing. That is the... So, this is one interesting thing. So that's the Octatrack by itself. As I was mixing it, I felt like it was a little weak, so I did reinforce the kick and the snare. Just a little. That's without. Back in. The pads I played down in 2 takes. Not a logical track without some pads. So this track is the original jammed modular sequence that's going on that I think is kind of the signature of this entire song. Was really happy with how it came out. Even that kind of annoying buzzing, I was like, yeah, that's what we want right there. That's it. You can see a little bit of arrangement going on here, just pulling out bits of the 303, because otherwise it was just that one sequence, not terribly complicated from an arrangement standpoint. So this is Arturia Pigments running through Valhalla delay and then being bussed over to Valhalla Vintage Verb. You'll know that that's my favorite plugins of all time. I just really love that. See, when it's soloed, you can hear that edit that probably can't in the full finished track. You can hear a little bit of again, that's all just to give it some interest. Then I'm modulating the other desert cities for the delay. The audio damage delay. Really, really nice delay. Alright, that's another thing I really love about that. I just really like this little bit here with the pads. Yeah. Then we have the modular drones that basically one live take. I edited out bits where I didn't want it to be. Yeah, so you see the modular track actually goes on a little bit further, but I faded out to... And by that point, we have cross-faded on the record over to the next track, which is Heart of Survival. So yeah, that's Pursuit. That was, I'm trying to, I don't remember, what I wish I'd done is like kind of gone back and tried to, figure out when. I could probably look at it real quick. Hold on. Let's see if I can figure out when I started this track. I would have started this. Oh no, it won't tell me because it's a Logic, a single Logic track. So I don't save separate versions. I have, different alternatives. That might be kind of fun. If we go to, this is probably the first alternative. Not going to save it. Yeah, so this is a very early take. 13 minutes, 47 seconds. This is probably the raw recording. Yeah, definitely some different stuff there. Yeah, so those of you that subscribe to the telemetry feed on Bandcamp will quite likely you will receive a bonus disc that includes some of this stuff. Or maybe I'll do a remix and include some of this. I actually feel like that's not even... I think I jammed it twice with the same thing. Yeah, there's take one. Here's take two. Save. So... Okay. Yeah, this one probably won't work well because I did compact my... trimmed my files. But yeah, you get the drift. You get the picture. Yeah. So I probably should not have consolidated all my files, and I didn't really think about wanting to go back to these early takes. I don't really ever do that. I've probably got some renders, some demo renders that I could go back to, but yeah, let's move on, shall we? So the next track is Heart of Survival, and this one I might actually be able to nail down a little bit more closely in terms of where it is. As you can see, I was jumping between workstations, between different software for this. Some of the projects three of the projects are in Logic. The rest of them were Ableton. There's no rhyme or reason to that. It's whatever I felt like doing. And then, I'm rendering off demo MP3s and then going back through and just listening to those MP3s and going, yeah, that track works or that track doesn't. At one point I had, when this was still potentially like all different kind of stylistic variations of Logical, I had a directory where I had, 20 or 30 different renders. And then I sorted those into kind of genre, right? I had the more industrial ones. I had the more like IDME ones, and I had the more ambient ones. And I threw all those in different directories. And I tried to put songs from those different categories together in a way that made sense. And ultimately it didn't. So yeah. Anyway, maybe one day I will, have something that's a little more all over the place. I don't know. Just looking at this, I'm looking at my album one work directory where I've packed some of this stuff up. The earliest project file in here is from November 2nd of 2021. So this is relatively late in the game for making the record. I was already knew what I was going to be doing. So let's listen to Heart of Survival real quick. I remember having to work a lot on getting the drums balanced right because it's all these different Ableton library drums kind of stacked up. That is the Behringer Pro 1, which is on all kinds of stuff that I do. I remember that. That's the original drum track. And I kind of ended up
Yet I didn't feel alive.
wanting it to settle down.
Everything was dreamlike.
All right. So one thing that's definitely one thing that I have not to this point done so much in my Logical material is have like vocal samples, and I decided that I wanted to kind of go back to that sort of vibe.
I didn't know what had happened.
So I raided archive.org. These samples are from a U.S. Air Force airman survival training film. I think it's like desert survival or jungle survival, and the whole, that's kind of where the name of the track comes from. And the whole narration here originally was sourced, the context is that, he's been shot down. He doesn't know where he is, but I kind of edited it to remove some of that and just make it a little more,
When I started to come to, I didn't know what had happened.
a little more ambiguous.
I didn't feel hurt.
Neat atmospheres.
Feel alive.
A lot of this is Ableton library stuff. I'm not a big.
Everything was
There was
dreamlike.
recently a debate. Well, it's an age-old debate, but there's this, how much do you do sound design versus songwriting? And I used to do a lot of sound design. Anymore, I'm looking for the thing that gets my point across. I will spend more time coming back and tweaking the sound after I get it down the first time than I will sitting somewhere and just playing with a synthesizer for hours.
I began to remember what had happened. But here I was beginning to remember again. Beginning to feel
this little guy. Let's see what that is. I mean, it's obviously a... Click the right button. A lot going on in here. There it is. So it is a, what do you call that one in Ableton? You call it a tension. Physical modeled string. You wouldn't know it from listening to it though.
Cut myself loose. Hurry.
So you'll see one thing on here that's interesting. The first pass of this I included also from archive.org. It's a conversation between Grant Morrison and Douglas Rushkoff that was interesting. And then I kind of thought it was, I don't know, a little too meandering and maybe a little too, I don't know, a little too something. So I put Arturia's new fragments device on there, and then we have Valhalla Space Modulator and Valhalla Delay, kind of giving us some weird textures that are a little under the surface. Yeah, I'm gonna bring us back here to this break.
All I can remember is I had to get out of there. Cut myself loose. Hurry. Run. Run. Run.
Of course, yeah. Like that little motif in the later part.
I was still shaking. I was filled with a strange kind of fear and hopelessness, but I was beginning to think. I began to realize that I was acting like a fool, killing myself.
Sorry, I said it was Air Force. It's obviously U.S. Navy, according to this. Well, U.S. Navy, Air Force. Well, Armed Forces. Let's just call it Armed Forces.
You're not quite so alone, not quite so cold. It helps you to believe in yourself again, and you begin hoping again.
Yeah, pretty neat. One of my other favorite sounds here.
What
Where
am I
is it?
doing?
Which one is it?
I just had to have it.
The boulder drop? Is that it? Yeah. That's nice.
All I can remember is I had to get out of there. Cut myself loose.
And that's the SQ80, Arturia SQ80 doing the arpeggiator bits. Yeah. Let's see, what else do I remember about this one? Let's go look at the session. This should be fun. So this one is probably, and most of these live ones, my Ableton workflow usually starts with the push. So it doesn't always end up being at all like what I do with the push though. Like, so we can kind of see, like, It probably started here.
I was still shaking, and I was
Let's stop everything. Probably started here. So that all basically tracks, right? Yeah, the arrangement's pretty much here. So that is the original bass line was this Ableton instrument, and then I routed that to the external instrument track and then captured the recording of the Pro One, which I think just is much better choice. So this one, when I said that what I do on the push and here in the session view is not always does not always translate into what goes into the arrangement for this track, that's a lie. This is obviously pretty close. Kind of came out into the session view, largely how it ended up in the arrangement. So, yeah, one of the other things that's going to be fun that I need to start doing, I just spent a couple hours the other night rendering off stems of a bunch of these tracks so that I can load them on to the Octatrack to do live versions. That will almost certainly be the topic of another live video once I get a little more... a little further down the road in that process, which I am not at all down the road in that process yet. I have, I literally have stems. That's what I've got. So let me find my, of course I had a handy dandy set of aliases, which I now have lost that window. Let's see. Here we go. So the next track on the record is Deflect and Surge. This one has been around, kicking around for quite some time. I'm pretty sure this is from around the time that would it have been Live 10 was released. Because it uses, and I will show you, it uses some instruments from one of the Max for Live yeah. So this is an interesting track. Let's go ahead and play it. This is definitely hat tip to Autechre'ville. So you see we have the step divider singletzer here, driving this Krockhausen wavetable synth. Then we have this these are what are these from? Let's see. Hold on a second. Do a search. The probability pack. Yeah. So maybe that wasn't one of the... I can't remember if that was one of the Live Suite, like, included things, or if I went and got that separately, or if it was free, but really fun sequencers. So those are just kind of like over here doing their thing. Same with this one. That's funny. So this was a rhythm that I ended up deciding I just plain didn't want in the track until the very end. The nifty bit is this Chiral Max for Live synth, which I've frozen mostly out of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Just wanting to be safe. That's what's providing the. This is such a good little synth. This is one of those things that will make me come to Ableton to use this. So this track was banging around in my like one of my project directories. I have folders of sort of time periods, and the reason why I think this might have been during a live during a live beta period or just after a live update, because that's when I would have been like, hey, let's try all these new sequencers that I just got and let's throw them all in one track and see what happens. Sounds like the kind of thing that I would do. But this Chiral synth came much, much later. This got added, in the spring as I was finishing up the record. I knew I wanted this track in, but like the things I didn't want in. So this guy. So we're even. So if you just imagine for a second, this is what the track sounded like for a very long time. Something like this. I don't know. Could have done, but in the end I didn't. It's obviously a recording too, like this is a so that's the machine drum. That I added at some point. And then I just sort of bring it in towards the very end of the track. All right, so that provides a little interlude kind of piece, and then we move to a track called Malicious Intelligence. Let's open that one up. Again, freezing a bunch of tracks because I'm was archiving and making sure. I'm not exactly sure why I froze this one more than others, but hey, whatever. All right, so this is definitely a more recent track in terms of some of the things that you see here, like lots of pigments. You'll know pigments just came out in the fall probably. So I was and there's Chiral. But I wonder. Let's go look at that one. What was this one originally called? Jinner 2? My stupid working titles. Yeah. Looks like November of 2021. So yeah, it's relatively new. Let's take a listen. Nice Pigments pad. That's all this. I mean, Pigments is one of my favorite synths at the moment, software-wise. This is one of those I look back on and I'm a little surprised. I'm surprised there's not more hardware on it. But maybe Pigments was new and this is just me playing with it. That would make sense. I know I got Cairo around that time, so it would make sense that I added that in there. Cairo is definitely one of the like little bits of software that that's Cairo. Plus some very Vangelis-y vintage verb. See, I just played that. I remember playing this down. I was sitting here kind of thinking, like, what else does this track need? Like, what is it? It doesn't have a lot of melodic content. It's just sort of like digga 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 digga. So adding, I was crying out for something like this. Sort of a, Morricone harmonica. Wistful yet gritty. And then there's some web DSR recordings, one of my favorite things. Tuning in to shortwave radios has been something I've enjoyed doing for my entire life. Now we can do it on the computer. And yeah, you were reading that right. That says dryer. It's not my dryer. I believe this came from another. There is I think it came from Drone Lab? Possibly. Let's search. Yep. Field recording textures, dryer.aif. That's it. Thank you, creators of Ableton Soundware. One of the things that I really like about this track, really just something that sometimes there's bits where you're like, I wouldn't do something like that, would I? That 909 toms. I don't typically do a lot with XOX toms. Like if you were to like give me a Roland drum machine and like measured the number of presses that or times that different sounds got used. Like you would find toms pretty low on the list, and I probably should do something about that and use them more. But I'm just really happy with that. Doom 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 doom. And there's like an extra hit in there that my ear just didn't even hear anymore until soloing it up just then. That last hit, because my ear was just hearing this doom 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 doom, and it's actually doom 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 doom. It's funny. Sometimes you get to living with these tracks and your ear starts hearing in a certain way, and sometimes there's things that you hear in there that are not really there, and sometimes there are things in there that you no longer are hearing, and I absolutely was not hearing that final hit. Let's listen to what this dryer is doing. Yeah, nice textures. I obviously made it backwards, time stretched it. This accent track is funny. I don't think it's actually doing anything. Do you? Yeah, it's not. It must have been at some point. Alright, so let's play the game now where we see what was in the session. Not too different. I mean, it almost sounds like I went for that almost could be the Pro 1, but obviously the Pigments was good enough. Yeah, so the root of the song, the kernel of it is absolutely here in the session still, and I could, probably, it's not a very complicated song. There's not a lot of arrangement here. It's, mostly just sort of, again, it's kind of boring without the chiral, I think. But it's got this single-minded purposeness to it, good driving song. It's a highway, almost a highway at night kind of tune, but there is like a maliciousness to it. Hence the title. Like, there's something to be scared of, but you're not sure what. Just a little bit of menace. It's just a little blood. It'll wash out. All right. So the next one is Education for War. Now that one's kind of funny because that's actually the tune that that is actually the tune, I think, where I decided that I was going to be using vocal samples on the record. I'm I had been going through and just kind of watching stuff on archive.org and found this video called Education for War, about it was obviously a training film for young men going into the service and getting them acquainted with military discipline. And it comes across, I think. Again, this is basically a stock Ableton thing. Not ashamed. Does what I want it to do. Here's something interesting. So in the process of mixing down the record, I saw a sale on the Brainworks SSL 4000 console, and I believe I heard about it through one of my friends at the Telecon Slack. Maybe that was Robert, or perhaps it was, I forget who it was, but whichever one of you over on the iDie Slack put this into the Making Beeps channel, thank you very much, because I believe that's how I found out that there was a sale, and I said, yes, I would also like to have some Brainworks SSL plugins for my mixdown, and it can do quite a thing. I hadn't touched a physical SSL console in over a decade, probably. It is a little bit like riding a bike, but I didn't do a whole lot. But sometimes you hear this and you can hear that it was doing something pretty significant. Let's take it off of it. I mean, you can hear it making that high end crack through a little bit more, right? I won't talk and then you'll hear. That's off. That is on. Again, Ableton Sound Library stuff.
Have you ever been homesick? When was the last time you cried?
We've got that SSL console on the drums too. Kind of mellowing the drums out, actually.
But when he entered service, he wasn't ready emotionally for big change. How about you? Will you be ready to obey orders? Will you be ready to take your part in education for war? Will you be ready to stand on your own, away from your family and friends? Can you
hi-hat.
make it without an emotional upset?
What's this up here? Oh.
That's right. Take stock of yourself. And then take action.
Now you see a note up here that says I need a B section.
But you can't.
Pretty sure I ended up getting a B section. I rearranged this track, if I recall correctly. Basically everything between that marker and bar 129, that was a kind of a rearrangement. Gotta have some 808s on there, right? It's one of my favorite. I still get like little thrills when I'm listening to like, that kind of late 80s, early 90s Puppy, and there's the 808s kind of like plink in just a little bit here and there, or do something kind of unexpected, and they go away.
Boy, did I get worked up. Real panicky. Let's face it, I sure need a lot of self-discipline. That's right. Take some of yourself.
There was your B section.
And then take action. You'll need time.
So one of the very last things I did on this track, and you hear how it's sort of like an exercise in call and response, or it's not really hocketing, but call and response, definitely. We've got this little 2-note motif, and then another instrument has another 2-note motif like that, right?
Let's face it, I sure need a lot of self-discipline. That's right. Take stock of yourself.
So one of the last things I did, I was like, it needs something else. So that's when I expanded this section to kind of have a little more melodicism and that octave up.
But you don't much like taking words. It annoys you when people tell you what to do or how to do something. Alright. Now you can flip by most of yours again. But do you want to go on that way? Later on, taking orders will be expected of you. Demanded of you. So now is the time to start practicing. Consider all your assignments as orders. Make it your business to follow them. Try to understand the real purpose and what your part is, and why the orders have to be followed to achieve that purpose. If you consider suggestions, advice, assignment as orders now, you'll adjust each later on. Is developing self-discipline. If you usually duck your responsibilities, it'll pay you to start changing your ways. If there's a job to be done, get it started. Take on responsibility for getting certain things done around the house.
I like that FM bark. Yeah. Which, again, should that be a digitone recording or digitone recording, however you want to pronounce it? Probably, but instead it's just an Ableton preset that gets the job done. Like I said, I'm not ashamed.
Take on responsibility for getting certain things done around the house. Talk it over there. Get yourself straightened out. Yes, get yourself ready emotionally. So that when you're away from home, you can adjust to the new situation. If you start now, to get ready emotionally for what lies ahead.
I really enjoyed that little fanfare and throwing the auto pan on it. Yeah, it's interesting. One thing that I struggled with, and maybe it's obvious, I don't know, but getting the right treatment on the vocal samples. When I guess it kind of shows that it's not something I use a lot.
Taking orders. It annoys you when people tell you what to do or how to do something. Alright. you can slip by most of the orders you
We've got a little bit of overdrive on there, just a hair.
Do you want to go on that way? Later on, taking orders will
Auto
be
pan to give it
expected
some
of you.
space, and then at the end to provide a little bit of effect. And we've got
So now is the time to start practicing. Consider all your assignments as orders. And make it your business to follow them.
So Valhalla Delay, obviously one of my other favorites. I almost always use it in digital
The
mode.
orders have to be followed to achieve that purpose.
I feel like it is the closest.
If you consider suggestions,
From a UI standpoint, it does not nearly do the same things as a PCM41 does, but sound-wise, it does the same things that a PC41 does. So when I'm looking for that PCM41-ish thing, that old lexicon delay kind of deal, that's what I go to, and I go to it without reservation. Obviously, there's another delay over here. That's just the Ableton delay. I was looking through this. It's actually kind of surprising. I usually replace the Ableton reverb, and I was also looking over my shoulder at the in my other screen where I've got the session files pulled up, and I was saying, oh, this one looks like it's from November. No, it's not from November. That's when I copied it that's got to be when I copied it over to over to this drive for the first time. So yeah, I'd have to go back and maybe get like maybe I should have done that before. Get a better idea of like when I started some of these tracks. Oh, we're slow. Yeah, it's got a good beat. You can dance to it. That's what's important, right? All right. So the last song on side A of the cassette, what would be the A side of the record if it were on vinyl, would be Third Major Problem, which was originally called 3-Sight. Don't save, please. This is another one that I'm fairly convinced was done in a Ableton Live beta period where there were new devices and things, because you hear this Vector FM guy. Was this the 11 suite? Possibly. And it just kind of runs the whole time. You'll notice that this is in 3/4 instead of 4/4. Not really, amazingly enough, as big of a prog rock fan as I am, I don't have a whole lot of logical tunes that are in alternate time signatures. Maybe that's another goal I'll set for myself for the next record. This one, I had a little private listening session with a couple of my close friends, one of whom I believe is on the stream right now, a Threv. He at least was. This one is quite obviously, I think, showing some of my coil influence. Also, not ashamed of that. Really neat sound. FM. Again, this at very least it started off as a Ableton preset. I seem to recall like dinking around with it quite a bit though. This one I was like, it had that little taste of maybe Nasa Arab or something along those lines, and that's a neat sound. Now, this motif, that motif, I'm sure, was something else first before the SQ80, because this track was lingering around for a while, and the SQ80 only came out in the last 6 to 8 months. Yeah, it probably. I did say WebDSR, didn't I? WebSDR, software defined radio. I just, little dyslexia. Or maybe it's definitely some radio. Web, definitely some radio. That's what it is. So this one's, I guess, interesting because I wanted something with this feel on the record, and there were a few kind of possibilities, but the others were longer and maybe were even a little more, I don't know, I wanted something that was a nice transitional piece, right? Like, that didn't overstay its welcome, didn't, wasn't trying so hard to be like a highlight, or a full-fledged song. I wanted something that was just a little more understated, a little bit, so that's interesting. So that is an unused rhythm. You gotta turn your right headphone up. Yeah, so that's interesting. Sometimes it's neat when you haven't deleted the thing that you decide not to use and just kind of leave it around there. Again, you can't tell, there is Valhalla delay all over this. Which again, so if you're going for that vintage lexicon kind of thing, right? Let's hearing that, right? So we've got the mod, the delay time being modulated, kind of giving it some of that warble. Short delay time, pretty deep mix. And so these two in concert are really kind of smudging that rhythm out. Anyway. All right. And again, that little that Vector FM thing just kind of runs by itself. It's just kind of neat. All right, so for side B, we start with Rogue Species, which is going to be in Logic, which is interesting. When I switch sessions in Logic, it will interrupt audio momentarily. So I'm going to get that loading now, hopefully. Don't say. That was Chiral. Let me find their webpage real quick. And you did hear my audio cut out. Max for Live. So these guys, Force FM, or this guy is a former Electron employee. And that is the URL that I just posted in the chat. There is also a reverb, which the reverb on that synth is really rather nice too. But he also has a reverb device that I've purchased from him. It is also really cool. There's nothing that it does that I can't do in vintage verb, but sometimes when you just want to like get something on there has a little bit of that, maybe a little bit more of that quadriverby early 90s IDM sound, it's aces. The big issue with those for me is that they are obviously they're Ableton devices. So if I want to use one of those, I'm in Ableton at that point. All right, so Rogue Species, originally called Short Time 1. I can. That means that I can date this one into being started in late September of last year, because that working title would have referred to the fact that I had just put in my notice at one job, getting ready to go to another one. So I was having short timer syndrome. Let's see what this sounds like. This kicks off side B. Oh, let's do this, because this is going to be annoying. Let me go ahead and load up the next Ableton session as well, because otherwise that Vector FM, like, I might as well do that. So the next one there is going to be Pilot Vertigo. All right. Anyway, going back over to Logic. So you'll see we've got a little bit of kick layering going on here, which is kind of fun. Let's break that down. Obviously, I was not happy with just one kick. I needed 3. Let's see why I needed that. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, I wanted some of that. And then, yeah, so it's 2 kicks, not 3. I really wanted to get some of that. Everybody wants some of that, right? So this has some interesting, a couple of attempts at vocal samples that I basically mutilated. So I like this guy. So this fourth track, that's more archive.org training movie, military training movie samples. And then this TV one, the first attempt was using loopback to just record stuff off of CNN or somewhere like that. And then I thought it was just a little too on the nose, so I put fragments and Valhalla Supermassive on it, and other desert cities. Like, I really went all out just to turn that into vaguely spoken. Here, if you want to know why I chose to do that, let's take these off.
By sea, using whatever means they can to get to the closest border to them, and this is the Romanian-Ukrainian border.
Obviously, we're speaking about the beginnings of the conflict in Ukraine. But with enough effects, you can remove the context from anything. This one has Logic step effects on it, which are remarkably useful from time to time. So, the synth that the chiral is probably trying, to emulate somewhat, at least, in feel. It's the Yamaha CS80, which I've got with that Valhalla shimmer. Just sends shivers up your spine, don't it? Which you can see, I basically played a takedown, and then I kind of came, as the track kept going, I punched a little bit more in. Late addition to the track for sure. I usually program my top loops, but this one, for some reason, I dropped it in and it was like, yep, that's what it needs. That's what I want. There's already a hi-hat up there, but kind of gives it some of that more locomotive feel. Yeah. rogue species. I heard that phrase said in something I was watching and said, that's what I'll rename one of these songs to. Kind of breaks the theme a little bit, but that's okay. Nobody's judging me on that, I hope. I am going to go ahead and open up the last Logic session so that we can get that audio dropout out of the way. We should be back. But then we're going to go back over to Ableton Liveville and we'll listen to Pilot Vertigo. So the original audio sources for this were I believe this was an Air Force training film about causes of accidents from pilots. And so it's like, like 4 or 5 case studies, and they're like, the pilot could have, did not have a lot of sleep and had 2 beers before, the night before, and wasn't properly prepared. So what could we have done to prevent this kind of thing? But what's interesting, I guess, about the technique here that's worth talking about is that this is, if we come over here, this is the original audio track. So you see it's like a 30-minute long training film that then I found little bits and set the starting points. And you will notice if we come over here, somewhere we should see, maybe if I expose the launch, we're using the old like launch, clip launch tricks to chop the thing up. So if we'll stop all the clips and just start one of these running, you'll see that they are jumping. It's set to play like some random other clip. So it's sort of like a cut up method in sampling. And then I would record that into the arrangement and then found bits that maybe worked better than others, or delete ones that weren't working quite as well. You can see I spent a little bit of time on getting the arrangement of this one right. Hence my markers up here at the top. This one definitely, you can kind of tell from what's going on here. It's not as like purely linear. Anybody who's worked with the push before knows that, like, kind of the workflow that it dictates to you is to, create clips, and as you're launching them, you're like creating a new scene. Like, so copy the playing scenes into a new scene and then build something else. You kind of see like almost a natural stair-stepping effect. And then, you're stopping clips from playing and, to make a B section, and then you insert that. But you see, I've got these gaps where scenes have like nothing in them. It's a little less, stair-stepped. So obviously I didn't spend a whole lot of time like in my jamming thinking about the arrangement. Instead did it like kind of after the fact. So let's see what it sounds like.
The Pilot Vertigo.
And when I heard that, I knew that was the title of the song.
Now, there are a number of factors.
So the drums are interesting here. And it's not often, but sometimes I will, rather than setting up an effects chain, I'll just find it easier to, I've got the horsepower. There's no reason why I can't just create a duplicate track and apply the effects to that. Oh no, look, what a shocker. Valhalla Vintage Verb. Actually in ambience mode, which is interesting. Mixed 100%. Yeah, I love Valhalla Vintage Verb. Let's go back to this section. So wavetable. So this, I bet if we look, yeah, so this is the original bass, which is an Ableton device, wavetable, but this, I took that MIDI and instead used Piston Honda for the bass line. So that's the modular Piston Honda through, let's see. Yeah, that's through the Studio Electronics filter. We've got some stacked pads here. So that's the Arturia Prophet and the wavetable from Ableton. Both of which going into a vintage verb send. So that's another little interesting thing. Let's go back into the drums. So one of the things that you can do when you, rather than bus a signal out to an effect, but instead like duplicate the audio and then run or sequence, as the case may be, and run it through an effect. You can have the wet track do some different things than what the dry track's doing, which I think is a really cool effect. And you can hear it here, where you get some claps that are the reverbed claps are coming in. Doing something a little differently than what the dry track's doing. Or vice versa. I think I've got both. Yeah, here's one where you've got some dry claps.
Not only is normal. They're just a word.
Yep, I am a wet track.
Examining the flex. There's only one thing. Fuel tank. Burning leak. So on. The best judgment we make a decision.
Not only is normal.
Concentrating on regaining his touch. I yield to you.
Have enough stick now on this particular area. Worried? Maybe had a break.
Concentrating on regaining his touch, not thinking about any possible emergencies. But the emergency came almost immediately, and he wasn't ready for it.
I don't think that entire sample on the end is actually on the final version. I think I crossfade it before we get to that, which is kind of a shame because I like that. All right. Moving on to the raid. This track, I composed the initial composition of this track happened on my couch. And as you can see, I was playing with Logic's kind of version of the session. The what do they call these things? What do they call this view? The live loops. Yeah. So hard to name things, isn't it? This is my Mind is the Perpetual Intercourse track on the record.
Here, Burley. This is Willie. I told you never.
Why do I think it's that?
I know. This is the item is finished.
727. That's why.
Can't you come earlier? No. All right then. 8 o'clock.
So this is one definitely where so that's the original bass line, and then Pro 1. The two of those together just work really, really well together. You know?
In the interest of security, a ground reconnaissance must be made with the utmost discretion. The information should indicate all avenues of approach and escape, the locations of all entrances, exits, windows, fire escapes, and any means of transportation which can be used for a getaway should be noted.
That just sounds cool.
Additional information should include the communication.
But that's the thing right there. That's it. Love it.
Fields of fire and cover and concealment available to the raiding party and the suspect. Animals that could raise an alarm, or mechanical warning systems. If possible, the attitude, relationship.
You'll see with my Logic tracks, I'm using a lot of alchemy. I think it's a great synth.
They could aid in their escape or alert them prior to the raid. At 1600 hours, Major White meets with key personnel to plan the raid. In the interest of security, initial information about a raid is disseminated to selected individuals on a need-to-know basis only.
Here, and here, and front. That'll cover the front, the sides, and the rear door should be fine.
So the vocal samples for this one come from it's like a counterintelligence, post-war counterintelligence film. And the story being told in the film is that there's a military officer working in Germany who's been trading secrets and papers to a, German intelligence agent, and they audio. What's the haps?
I'll be raised command. Ross will be assistant. Transportation will be provided by the sun. The raid will begin on line signal. The lead years of all aircraft at 18 to the final briefing. Are there any questions?
Right? Something. Listening to this. Oh, there's something. Well, just to play back at the end. Talk about it besides Logic's freaking out. Yeah, the 727. You don't get a lot of 727 these days. I was glad to be able to use the 727 sounds in something. That was kind of the if I come out to the live tracks, live if it will. All right, moving on. That's too bad. You'll have to listen to the rest of the raid on your favorite listening device, and let me know if you have any questions about the end of it. So the next track, Dream Protocols. This one is actually available in its unaltered entirety on my YouTube. This was one of the this is one of the ambient couch jams that I did streaming, and I edited it quite intensely because, as you can see, This is 65 minutes long. But what that means is this is not that's not the final version. Let me find the final version. While I'm looking for this, I'll tell you that the whole idea of this track, the process that I'm using is basically stolen shamelessly from Brian Eno. This is the interesting. Is there one of these? This is using long delays at or looper devices at different lengths. Yeah, here we go. So let me unsolo. So what I was using is Audio Damage's INSO device, which, to give you an example, provides you with a buffer of an arbitrary length, although you can have it lock to tempo so it can behave as a normal looper. But I just had like a bunch of those and was playing chiral and pigments into them. And like I said, there's about an hour of this in a YouTube video in my channel, where you can listen to this whole thing get recorded and composed in real time. This track, the number 10 audio, is actually the real-time recording of what was happening. It's not the same as what's happening in these now, because over the course of the recording, I would maybe stop one of the loops and replace it with something else or change the settings. So all of these tracks are maybe in the state that I ended up on, but that's why I thought it was important that I record the actual output of the jam, the two mix, right? So I wanted to take a breather on the record. I wanted there to be a point where you could kind of step back and collect yourself and collect your thoughts. I mean, things have been fairly intense. We're getting towards the end of the album. And so the only part that's on the record is this bit in here. And added to, we have some, let's listen to that without the vocoder.
An 18-year-old man has appeared in court charged with murdering 10 people at a supermarket in
That's just
Buffalo,
cheery, isn't it?
New York State. Most of them.
Again, with enough effects, you can remove the context and meaning from anything. See, I just end up typing it DSR instead of SDR. I think I might not have ended up using the radio in the album version. But yeah, there's a lot of this, and it's actually the kind of thing I totally understand why. I mean, it does the thing. It does the thing you want to do. It does the thing that Eno said it did, and there's a reason why he made albums with this technique. I understand why he moved along from it, because once you've done it a couple times, it's sort of like, oh, yeah, that's it, isn't it? But I enjoyed it. That's what's important. I like how it's vaguely unsettled. It was really hard to pick a portion, but I ended up using this later bit. Let's see what's here at the very end. Again, you can't go far without seeing my vintage verb. This is my preset, my Vangelis 224 logical preset. 12 seconds decay time. You know, definitely looking for that Blade Runner-y thing. I'd say it does pretty well. Pretty well, I'd say. Yeah, so I cut that down. I mean, you know, 65, 70 minutes of that is probably too much. I agree. But anyway, it was originally a live stream. It was sitting on the couch, getting lost in it. Like you do. You'd do the same thing if it was you. I'm sure of it. All right, so then we are going to hit the last track on the record is One Way Mind. This is kind of closing the loop. It's also very much a live jam. It's been edited down quite a bit. What is not so obvious from this is what pieces are what. So let's listen to it. So that Rift device, if you guys haven't seen this, this is it's like a distortion with some delay and feedback kind of thing. It's got all these different sequenceable, different delay algorithms that are modulatable and sequenceable with an internal. Where do you get to that? I gotta find it. I barely know how to use it, I'll be honest. I bought it and was like, that thing's cool. And then I have not really had a chance to sit down and like learn it. But occasionally on this record, I've thrown it on a few things and gone, that is really cool. Because you can hear if I take it off. I mean, you know, not much to that, but you add that riff and it does the thing. So again, we're layering some drums together here. So the best indicator of age here, this is that's machine drum. This was a machine drum based jam, so this is at least a couple years old. But you can hear it. That's definitely machine drum. Might as well use the riff again, right? That is the digatone. But I think you can hear kind of. So this is the machine drums kick, and I'm mashing the snot out of it. You can see all these edits. This was almost certainly like a 15 to 20 minute long jam, like they tend to be. That I then so if we go down here,
you just never know.
So again, same technique as we used previously on Pilot Vertigo, where we have some audio I took off of the news. I think that's some BBC news, and I'm using the launch actions to select a new clip every, eighth note, 16th note, eighth note. Well, half note. Let's call it a half note. And there you hear some of the famous modulation of the clap on machine drum. I'm definitely glad I own the machine drum, but I don't miss it. I do want another standalone drum machine though. Right now I use the Octatrack for most of my drum machine needs, but I think it'd be nice to have just a drum machine. So again, most of this track really is that 2 mix off of the I like that. That's just me twisting the knobs live. That is the Pro 1. So this is I've got a bunch of jams that are from this same era, and you can it's the machine drum, the Pro 1, and Digitone. So before I pulled the trigger on the module. But like all good tracks and all good records, you have to fade out and then give a little reprise. All right. And that's it. That's the record. That was fun. Yeah, so again, I think the thing that's interesting is so in hindsight, I hadn't kind of gone through and looked at it like this. It's actually interesting to me how much of it is not hardware, given how many hardware jams I have that need to be edited and stuff needs to be gone through, and yeah, there's a lot of software on this. Again, some of it comes from the fact that some of these tracks are older. I think it would have been interesting to go and like really find out like when I started some of these tracks, because a couple of them are at least a couple of them are pretty ancient. But then there's some that are definitely newer, like the Raid that was done over that's late fall, early winter. Because I remember sitting on the couch and probably watching the Olympics. So yeah, that would have been winter of this year. So relatively recently. And then what was the other one that we can put a fairly Rogue Species would have been September of last year. But a lot of these other ones are, this tune is at least a couple of years old. Some of the other ones are very old. But then, Pursuit would be relatively new, because that is actually the same sort of workflow that I do. I have a lot of tracks like that now that are Octatrack for the rhythms, plus stuff going on the modular, going on to a stereo track, and then bass line coming out of the 303 or maybe the Pro 1 or maybe both. That's fairly, I've got a lot of that. I've got some tracks that have not yet made it onto onto record that almost made it onto this one. I've got probably a single that I need to finish, that the two tracks that could very well have ended up on this record but just didn't quite fit, and those I know are here. We're at the 2-hour mark. I know it's time to wrap up, but here's what I will do: is we will close by me opening up one of the tracks that didn't make it onto the record. Let's see here. Let me pull this around so folks can see me, and I'm not looking over at the other monitor. So let's see here. Move out of releases. For those of you that are interested, I have these, I call them phases. and I basically was going through different phases and pulling tracks out, going through all these, rendering off demos, and then choosing based on that render, not necessarily when it was made. But if and you see that some, Logic modular and streaming, so fall 21, winter 22, a lot of this stuff here, there are streams here on YouTube of whatever I was doing in those. In perspective release, yeah, so album Rejected. This guy here, Liminal Disco. This one I need to finish. This is the sneak preview of what will be a logical single. This is, I think, just post getting the modular. So this would be spring of 2021. Oh, media files are missing. That's interesting. That's Octatrack. That is Digitone with that rift on it. Sounds really good. I just need to learn how to get around it.
It was centuries before man had devised equipment sufficiently precise to make a successful measure.
So obviously, I was strongly considering this for the record.
Of this most famous physical constant, the velocity of light in air, approximately 300,000 kilometers per second.
Pretty sure that's Digitone as well. Yeah.
Simple timing devices, if we employ extraordinarily long distance, astronomical distance, for example. This is what Raymer did in 1676 using the ecliptic to the moon of Jupiter. On the other hand, we can use simple, convenient, relatively short distances, which can be accurately measured if we employ time. We have to carry out a similar method.
This one definitely has a plateau vibe. Some neat stuff going on in there. This is pretty great because it's just 4 tracks, right? Probably doesn't need to be 8 minutes 30 or whatever it is. So I need to do some more editing. It's going to need some other synth parts, I think. Another thing that I have to do is I guess there's going to be another Telecon Slack compilation. I need to find a track for that. I think that's actually the modular. Yeah. Maybe. Would have been thoughtful of me to label my tracks for myself, wouldn't it? Anyway, there's a little sneak peek, a little idea, and you can see, I've got a bunch of tracks in here that I Oh, this shows you kind of that assembly process. So in my demo bounces folder, I ended up with all of these demos that then I would sort of put into categories. You probably can't hear that because it's not coming out of Logic. And then I just chose them, and then went and found the session files and started editing. So just a little insight into the process of winnowing down, I guess, from a huge collection of tracks. Let's see, that's 7, 8, 9, 16. Yeah, definitely 35 tracks there, and that does not include the ones that ended up on the record. Yeah. Anyway, so fun stuff. Let's go ahead and wrap it up then. If I can find where OBS went, we'll come back over here, and I will say thank you to all of you who hung out and entertained me a little bit in the chat. Let's do it again. Let me know if you have any questions. Drop stuff in the comments, and it's so funny as a parting shot at myself. I did the performance online back, I believe, in May, and as I wrapped up that, I said I hope to be doing these every week. And it's now August 13th, and I have not done a stream since then. So it just goes to show that even though I have good intentions, life happens, things happen. Finishing the record became kind of my overriding goal, and I did not want to live stream me pulling my hair out at every last little mixing thing. I think that the spontaneity and fun of streaming, improv is one thing, but I don't know. You guys tell me if you think that it would be more interesting, if you would like to see me working on tracks that I'm preparing for release, then, let me know. Maybe we can do some of that. I just feel like that's maybe not the most fun thing in the world to watch, but what do I know? Let me know what you want to see. I will definitely... again, my creativity being cyclical, is getting towards the autumn when I get more creative. Something about the oppressive heat of the summertime. I just don't feel it. Don't feel like doing it. Which, you know what they say. I should just be doing it anyway. But anyway, on that note, I will endeavor to join you guys again very soon. I will obviously let folks know. Maybe I will schedule it and tell people, hey, come by this Saturday at 3 p.m. again, and we'll do something else. So anyway, I hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, stays happy, keeps on making music. I want to hear some of what y'all are doing. So please, by all means, get in touch. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks for hanging out.